You know what's crazy? The moment everything changed wasn't some big dramatic scene like in the movies. Nah, it was way more low-key than that. It was just a Tuesday night in downtown LA, nothing special, just another boring charity gala full of fake smiles and expensive champagne. Isabella Martinez stood there in her silver dress, totally over it, watching her father, Judge Richard Martinez, work the room like he always did. Dude was basically California's most respected federal judge, the guy everyone looked up to, Mr. Perfect himself. But here's the thing nobody saw coming, not even Bella. Across that crowded ballroom, through all those people pretending to care about whatever cause they were raising money for that night, she locked eyes with someone. And bro, I'm not talking about some cute meet cute moment. This was different. Dangerous different. The guy standing there, leaning against the bar like he owned the place, wasn't supposed to be there. Marcus the Ghost Romano. Yeah, that Marcus Romano. Head of the most powerful crime family on the West Coast. The same man her father had been trying to put behind bars for like 3 years straight. And the weirdest part? The absolute craziest thing about that whole moment? He smiled at her. Not some creepy smile, nah, it was almost sad, like he knew something she didn't. Like he was warning her about something that was about to go down. And that's when everything Bella thought she knew about her perfect life started falling apart, piece by piece. Hey, real quick before we dive deeper into this crazy story, if you want to know how this forbidden connection between a mafia boss and a judge's daughter actually plays out, if you're curious about the secret that's gonna flip everything upside down, then smash that subscribe button right now and hit the like. Seriously, this story gets absolutely wild and you don't want to miss what happens next. Plus, I drop stories like this all the time, stories that'll keep you on the edge of your seat, stories about forbidden love, dangerous secrets, and choices that change everything. So do yourself a favor, subscribe, like, and let's keep going because what I'm about to tell you next is gonna blow your mind. Alright, so let me back up a bit and paint the full picture for you because this whole situation is way more complicated than just some girl meeting some guy at a party. Isabella Martinez, or Bella as everyone called her, wasn't your typical 24-year-old California girl living off daddy's money. Sure, she had the luxury life, the penthouse in Beverly Hills, the designer clothes, the whole 9 yards. But Bella was different, man. She was getting her master's degree in criminal psychology at UCLA, pulling straight A's while working part-time at a youth rehabilitation center in Compton. Girl was passionate about helping kids who got caught up in the system, kids who never had a real shot at life. And yeah, maybe that made her father proud, but it also made her see things differently than him. She saw the gray areas, you know? Not everything was black and white like Judge Martinez wanted to believe. Her old man though, Richard Martinez, he was a whole different story. Dude came from nothing, grew up in East LA back in the day when it was rough, like really rough. Worked his way through community college, then law school, became a prosecutor, and eventually landed on the federal bench. Everyone called him the Hammer because once he decided you were guilty, bro, you were done. No second chances, no mercy, just straight up justice the hard way. And his biggest target for the past 3 years? Marcus Romano and his entire operation. The Romano family controlled everything on the West Coast, and I mean everything. Drugs coming up from Mexico, illegal gambling, protection rackets, you name it. But here's the thing about Marcus, the reason they called him the Ghost. Nobody could ever pin anything directly on him. Dude was smart, like scary smart. He kept his hands clean on paper, ran legitimate businesses, restaurants, nightclubs, real estate investments all over California. But everyone knew what was really going down. Judge Martinez had made it his personal mission to bring Marcus down, obsessed over it actually. He had files and files on the Romano family stacked in his home office, stayed up late every night looking for that one piece of evidence that would stick. It was eating him alive, this case. Bella's mom had even left 2 years ago, couldn't handle the obsession anymore, couldn't deal with the constant security threats and the fear. So it was just Bella and her father now, living in this massive house that felt empty most of the time. Now Marcus, this guy was a total mystery to most people. At 32, he was young for a mafia boss, but he'd earned his spot the hard way after his father got killed in a rival family dispute 5 years back. Word on the street was that Marcus was different from the old-school mobsters. He didn't believe in unnecessary violence, tried to run things more like a corporation than a crime family. But don't get it twisted, when someone crossed him, when someone threatened his family or his business, he could be absolutely ruthless. Cold as ice. That's how he survived in that world. But there was something else about Marcus that nobody really knew, something he kept buried deep. Growing up, his little sister Sophia had gotten caught in the crossfire of a gang shooting when she was just 15. She survived, but barely, and it messed her up bad. PTSD, anxiety, the whole deal. That experience changed Marcus, made him see that all the violence and crime wasn't just business, it had real consequences, hurt real people. He started putting money into community programs on the low, funding youth centers and after-school activities in rough neighborhoods. Nobody knew it was his money, obviously, because that would have been bad for his reputation in both worlds. He kept that part of himself locked away, hidden behind the cold exterior everyone expected from a mob boss. So back to that night at the gala. After their eyes met across the room, Bella tried to ignore it, tried to focus on the boring conversations around her. But she could feel him watching her, could sense his presence even when she wasn't looking in his direction. It was like this magnetic pull, this weird energy she couldn't explain. And then, around 10:30 when most people were getting drunk and loose, she stepped out onto the balcony for some fresh air. The LA skyline was lit up all pretty, city lights stretching out forever, and she was just standing there trying to clear her head when she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't have to turn around to know who it was. The ghost himself had followed her outside. Marcus stood there for a moment, not saying anything, just looking out at the city like he was thinking about something heavy. Then finally he spoke, and his voice was different than she expected, softer somehow, more human. He said, "Your father is a good man, probably one of the few truly good men left in this city." Bella was shook, didn't expect that at all. She turned to face him, ready to tell him to back off, ready to call security or something. But when she looked at him up close, really looked at him, she saw something in his eyes that threw her off completely. It wasn't the cold, calculated stare of a criminal. It was sadness, like deep sadness, like someone carrying around weight they couldn't put down. And then he said something that made her whole world tilt sideways. He said, "I'm sorry for what's about to happen, I tried to stop it but some things are already in motion, things bigger than both of us. Tell your father to be careful, tell him not everyone in his circle is who they claim to be." Before Bella could even process what he meant, before she could ask what the hell he was talking about, Marcus was gone, just disappeared back into the party like smoke. She stood there on that balcony for like 20 minutes, heart racing, mind spinning, trying to figure out if that conversation actually happened or if she'd imagined the whole thing. Was he threatening her father? Was he trying to warn him? Nothing made sense. When she went back inside, she saw Marcus leaving through the main entrance, and her father was across the room talking to some FBI agents, completely unaware that his biggest enemy had just been standing 10 feet away from his daughter. That night, Bella couldn't sleep at all, kept replaying Marcus's words over and over in her head. Not everyone in his circle is who they claim to be. What did that mean? Was someone working with her father actually working for the mob? Was there a mole in the federal system? The next morning, she tried to bring it up to her dad over breakfast, tried to casually mention that she'd seen Marcus Romano at the gala. But Judge Martinez just went off, started ranting about how that man was a cancer on society, how he corrupted everything he touched, how he'd destroy their family if given the chance. He made Bella promise she'd stay away from anything or anyone connected to the Romano family. And she agreed, of course she agreed, what else was she gonna do? But here's where things get interesting, where this story really starts to take shape. 2 weeks went by and Bella tried to forget about that whole weird encounter, tried to focus on her thesis about rehabilitation versus punishment in the criminal justice system. But life had other plans, because on a Thursday afternoon while she was volunteering at the youth center in Compton, something happened that changed everything. There was this kid named Diego, 16 years old, smart as hell but caught up in some gang stuff because his older brother was deep in that life. Bella had been working with Diego for months, trying to help him see a different path, trying to get him to think about college instead of the streets. That day Diego came in looking scared out of his mind, like proper terrified. He pulled Bella aside and told her his brother had gotten himself into some serious trouble, owed money to some dangerous people, and now they were coming after the whole family. The kid was crying, asking Bella if there was anything she could do, any legal way to help. But Bella knew the system, knew how slow it moved, knew that by the time any official help arrived it would probably be too late. She told Diego she'd try to figure something out, but honestly she had no idea what to do. That night, she was at home stressing about it when she got a text from an unknown number. All it said was, "The boy and his family are safe now, nobody will bother them again." Then another text came through immediately after, "Meet me tomorrow at Griffith Observatory at sunset. Come alone, I need to explain some things." No signature, no name, but Bella knew exactly who it was. Marcus Romano somehow knew about Diego, somehow knew she'd been trying to help this kid, and somehow he'd already fixed the problem. That freaked her out more than anything because it meant he'd been watching her, keeping tabs on what she was doing. Part of her wanted to ignore the message, block the number, tell her father everything. But another part of her, the part that was curious and maybe a little reckless, wanted answers. She needed to understand what was going on, needed to know why this dangerous man seemed to be orbiting around her life. So the next day she drove up to Griffith Observatory, told herself she'd just hear him out and then bounce. The sun was setting over LA, sky all orange and pink, tourists everywhere taking pictures and being all lovey-dovey. She found Marcus standing by the edge overlooking the city, wearing jeans and a plain black t-shirt, looking way more normal than she expected. When he saw her, he didn't smile or anything, just nodded like he appreciated that she actually showed up. They started walking along the path away from the crowds, and for a few minutes neither of them said anything. Finally, Bella broke the silence, asked him straight up, "Why did you help Diego? How did you even know about that situation?" Marcus stopped walking, turned to look at her with those sad eyes again, and said something that started to reveal the truth, the real secret behind everything. He told her that the youth center where she volunteered, the one that had been struggling financially for years, the one that almost shut down 6 months ago until some anonymous donor came through with a massive donation, that was his money. All of it. Bella just stared at him like he'd grown a second head. She was like, "Why would you do that? Why would a mob boss fund a rehab center for at-risk kids?" And that's when Marcus really opened up, when he started peeling back the layers of who he actually was underneath the reputation. He told her about his sister Sophia, about how watching her suffer after getting shot changed his whole perspective on the life he was living. He told her that every kid he helped stay out of gangs, every kid who chose school over the streets, that was like saving his sister over and over again. He'd been funding programs all over South LA for years, had whole networks of counselors and mentors on his payroll, all operating under fake nonprofit names so nobody would trace it back to him. But here's the thing that really messed with Bella's head. Marcus explained that he couldn't just walk away from the family business, couldn't just quit being who he was. There were too many people depending on him, too many agreements and alliances that would fall apart and create chaos if he tried to leave. The violence would get worse without him, not better, because the next person to take over wouldn't have his restraint, wouldn't care about minimizing casualties. He was trapped in this life, trying to do some good while still being the bad guy everyone needed him to be. And then Marcus dropped the bomb, the thing that made everything click into place. He told Bella that 3 months ago, he discovered something about her father's case against him, something big that nobody else knew yet. There was someone high up in the federal prosecutor's office working with a rival crime family, the Vitali family from New York, feeding them information and helping them expand into West Coast territory. This person was using Judge Martinez's obsession with bringing down the Romanos to create a power vacuum, planning to take out Marcus and let the Vitalis move in. The Vitalis were old school, violent, didn't care about collateral damage. If they took over, the streets would run red, innocent people would die, everything would go back to how it was in the 80s and 90s. Marcus had been trying to gather evidence to expose this mole for months, but he couldn't do it through official channels because who would believe him, right? He's the bad guy. So he'd been doing his own investigation, following paper trails, recording conversations, building a case. But he needed help, needed someone on the inside who could verify what he'd found, someone with access to the legal system who might actually believe him. And that someone, the only person he thought might listen, was Bella. She asked him why he didn't just take this person out, why not handle it the mob way if he was so sure about it. Marcus looked at her real serious and said, "Because I'm trying to be better than what everyone thinks I am, and killing a federal prosecutor would make everything worse, would prove your father right about me, would start a war I don't want. I need to do this the right way, need to expose them legally so the whole system can see what's really happening." Bella's mind was absolutely spinning at this point. She asked him who was this mole that was playing both sides. Marcus pulled out his phone, showed her photos, documents, recorded phone calls. The name made her knees go weak because she knew this person, had met them multiple times at her father's house, at official events. It was Assistant U.S. Attorney Daniel Chin, her father's right-hand man in the case against the Romano family, the guy Judge Martinez trusted more than anyone else in the world. Daniel Chin was the one who'd been pushing her father so hard to find evidence against Marcus, the one who'd been feeding the obsession, the one who had access to all the case files and knew exactly what the feds had on the Romanos. And he'd been selling that information to the Vitali family, helping them position themselves to take over once Marcus went down. But it gets even crazier than that. Marcus showed Bella evidence that Daniel Chin had been planning something major, something that would happen in less than 2 weeks. There was a big federal operation planned to raid several Romano properties simultaneously, a massive coordinated strike that was supposed to finally bring down the whole organization. But Chin had leaked the details to the Vitalis, and they were planning to hit those same locations first, steal millions in cash and product, and make it look like the Romanos had tipped off the raid themselves. The whole thing was designed to make Marcus look like an informant, which in the mob world is basically a death sentence. His own people would turn on him, the Vitalis would move in, and Chen would walk away clean with a fat payoff and a promotion for his work on the case. Bella didn't want to believe it, asked Marcus how he could be sure about all this. He told her he'd been recording Chen for weeks, had proof of meetings with Vitali lieutenants, had tracked the money transfers going into offshore accounts. Everything was documented, everything was verifiable. But he couldn't go to the FBI or any official channels because Chen had too many connections, too many people who would protect him long enough for him to destroy the evidence. The only person who could stop this whole thing, who had the authority and the integrity to act on it, was Judge Martinez himself. And Marcus needed Bella to get that evidence to her father without revealing where it came from, at least not at first. He needed her to plant the seed of doubt, to make the judge look into Chen without triggering any alarms. Bella stood there on that hill overlooking Los Angeles, watching the city lights flicker on as night fell, and she had to make a choice that would change everything. She could walk away, pretend this conversation never happened, let whatever was going to happen just happen. Or she could trust this man, this criminal, this enemy of her father, and risk everything to expose a truth that nobody wanted to see. Hey, pause real quick. What do you think about this so far? I mean, if you were Bella, would you trust Marcus? Would you risk your relationship with your father to expose the truth? Drop a comment below and let me know what you're thinking right now. Have you ever been stuck between two impossible choices like this? Do you know someone who had to choose between doing what's right and protecting someone they love? Share your story in the comments, I really want to hear from you. Your comments help me keep bringing stories like this to you, so don't be shy, let me know what's going through your head. And trust me, you gotta stick around until the end because what happens next is gonna flip everything you think you know about this story upside down. The real secret, the thing that connects Bella and Marcus in a way nobody saw coming, that's about to be revealed. Bella took the evidence. She told Marcus she'd think about it, figure out how to approach her father without making things worse. But as she was about to leave, Marcus stopped her and said there was one more thing she needed to know, something he hadn't told her yet because he wasn't sure how she'd react. And bro, this is where the whole story takes a turn that nobody could have predicted. Marcus pulled out an old photograph from his wallet, the edges all worn like he'd been carrying it around forever. The photo showed two kids, maybe 8 or 9 years old, playing in a park somewhere in East LA. One of the kids was clearly Marcus, you could tell from the eyes. The other kid was a little girl with pigtails and a huge smile. Bella looked at the photo confused, asked Marcus why he was showing her this. And then he said something that made the whole world stop spinning. He said, "That little girl is you, Bella. We used to play together when we were kids, before your father became a judge, before my father pulled me deeper into the family business. Our families lived in the same neighborhood for 3 years. Your dad and my dad actually knew each other back then before everything went sideways." Bella literally couldn't process what she was hearing. She had no memory of this, no memory of ever knowing Marcus as a kid. But as she stared at that photo, something clicked in the back of her mind, like a door opening to a room she'd forgotten existed. There was this vague memory of a boy who taught her how to climb the monkey bars, who shared his lunch with her when she forgot hers, who promised they'd be friends forever. But that memory felt like a dream, something she'd convinced herself wasn't real. Marcus explained that when she was 9, her father got appointed to a bigger position and they moved out of East LA to a safer neighborhood. Around the same time, Marcus's father sat him down and told him he had to start learning the family business, had to leave his childhood behind. They never saw each other again after that, but Marcus never forgot her. He told her that when he first found out Judge Martinez was the one trying to take him down, he didn't make the connection right away. But then he saw a photo of the judge's daughter in some article about youth rehabilitation programs, and he recognized her immediately. Those same eyes, that same determined look she used to have when she was trying to master the monkey bars. That's when everything got complicated for Marcus, when this whole case stopped being just business and became personal. He'd been watching over her from a distance for months, making sure she was safe, making sure the youth center she cared about had funding, making sure kids like Diego got protected when they needed it. Not because he was trying to manipulate her or use her against her father, but because some part of him still cared about that little girl from the park, still wanted to protect her like he did when they were kids. Bella was crying at this point, tears just streaming down her face because her whole reality was crumbling. This man she was supposed to hate, this criminal her father had painted as pure evil, was someone who'd been part of her life before everything got complicated. Someone who'd been quietly protecting her while being hunted by her own father. But here's where it gets even deeper, where the real secret comes out. Marcus told her that the reason their fathers stopped being friends, the reason everything fell apart, wasn't because Marcus's dad was in the mob. Judge Martinez already knew about that back then and had chosen to look the other way because they'd grown up together, because they were boys from the same streets trying to survive. No, what destroyed their friendship was something else entirely. 20 years ago, there was a case involving a corrupt police unit in East LA that was working with drug dealers, taking bribes, planting evidence on innocent people. Richard Martinez was a young prosecutor at the time, eager to make his mark, eager to clean up the streets. He built this huge case against the corrupt cops, had witnesses lined up, had evidence that would have sent them all to prison. But the night before the trial was supposed to start, someone got to the main witness, a young woman who'd seen everything. She disappeared, probably killed, and the whole case fell apart. The cops walked free and some of them are still on the force today. Marcus's father knew who'd gotten to that witness, knew which crime family had paid off those cops and protected them. It was the Vitali family from New York, the same family that's trying to take over now. But here's the thing nobody knew, here's the secret that Richard Martinez had buried for 2 decades. That witness who disappeared, who probably got killed, she was pregnant at the time. And the father of that baby was Richard Martinez himself. He'd gotten involved with her during the investigation, crossed a line he shouldn't have crossed, and when she vanished, he couldn't tell anyone the real reason he was so devastated. Couldn't admit that he'd compromised a witness, that his personal relationship had potentially gotten her killed. Marcus's father confronted Richard about it, told him he needed to come clean, needed to admit what happened and go after the Vitalis properly. But Richard refused, said it would destroy his career, destroy any chance he had of making real change in the system. He chose his ambition over justice, and that's when their friendship ended. Marcus's father promised to keep the secret, but he never forgave Richard for it, and he made sure Marcus knew the truth when he got older. So all these years, Judge Martinez has been obsessed with taking down the Romano family, not just because they're criminals, but because they know his darkest secret. Every time he looks at Marcus, he sees the son of the man who knows what he did, who could expose him at any moment. And Marcus, he's been carrying this weight too, knowing that the man trying to destroy him is the same man who let a pregnant woman die to save his own career. Bella was absolutely wrecked by this revelation. She asked Marcus why he never exposed her father, why he kept this secret all these years. And Marcus said something that showed just how complicated this whole situation really was. He said, because despite everything, your father has done more good than harm. He's put away hundreds of real criminals, helped clean up these streets, gave kids a chance at a better life. That one mistake, that one failure, it doesn't erase all the good he's done since. And honestly, I kept the secret because of you, because I remembered that little girl who believed her father was a hero, and I didn't want to be the one to take that away from her. But now the situation had changed. The Vitalis coming to LA, Daniel Chin betraying the system, the planned raid that could destroy everything, it all connected back to that original sin from 20 years ago. Chin was actually the nephew of one of those corrupt cops who'd walked free, and he'd been recruited by the Vitalis specifically to get revenge on Judge Martinez and the Romano family at the same time. The whole conspiracy was about settling old scores, and Bella and Marcus were caught in the middle of it, connected by a past they'd both forgotten and a secret that could destroy everything. Marcus told Bella she had a choice now. She could take the evidence about Chin to her father and stop the immediate threat, save innocent lives and expose them all. But doing that would also mean eventually revealing the whole truth, including her father's past, because it was all connected. The Vitalis wouldn't stop until they got their revenge, and the only way to really end this was to bring everything into the light, even the ugly parts, even the secrets that would hurt people she loved. Or she could walk away, let the chips fall where they may, protect her father's reputation and let the system handle itself. But that would mean more people would die, more families would be destroyed, and the cycle of violence and corruption would just keep spinning. Bella looked at Marcus standing there in the fading light, this man who was supposed to be the villain of her story, and realized he was probably the most honest person she'd ever met. He'd laid everything out, given her all the information, and put the choice entirely in her hands. He wasn't trying to manipulate her or use her against her father. He was giving her the power to decide what justice really meant, what truth was worth, and what price she was willing to pay for it. She asked him what he wanted her to do, and he said something that broke her heart and put it back together at the same time. He said, "I want you to do whatever lets you sleep at night, whatever lets you look at yourself in the mirror and know you did the right thing. I've made my peace with being the bad guy in everyone's story, but you still have a chance to be something better, to break this cycle. Whatever you decide, I'll back you up, even if it means exposing myself, even if it means losing everything." That's when Bella realized something crucial, something that changed her understanding of everything. The fear she'd felt that first night at the gala, when she'd locked eyes with Marcus across the room, that wasn't fear of him being dangerous. It was fear of recognizing something in him, some connection she couldn't explain at the time. And the desire she'd felt, that pull she couldn't resist, it wasn't just attraction. It was her soul remembering someone it had known before the world told them they were supposed to be enemies. The real forbidden secret wasn't that a judge's daughter was falling for a mob boss. It was that two kids who'd promised to be friends forever had found each other again in the middle of a war neither of them started, and they had the power to either continue the cycle of violence and secrets, or finally break it and set everyone free. 3 days later, Bella walked into her father's home office at midnight, when she knew he'd still be up working on the Romano case like he always was. Judge Martinez looked up surprised, asked her what was wrong because he could see it written all over her face, could see she'd been carrying something heavy. Bella sat down across from his desk, the same desk where she'd done homework as a kid, where she told him about her dreams of helping people, where he'd always made her feel safe and protected. But tonight, that safety was about to shatter. She placed a USB drive on the desk between them and said, "Dad, I need you to look at something, and I need you to promise me you'll see it through to the end, no matter what it reveals, no matter who it hurts." Judge Martinez picked up the drive, looking at his daughter with concern and confusion. He asked her where she got it, what was on it. And Bella, she took a deep breath and told him a version of the truth, not all of it yet, but enough. She told him she'd been contacted by someone who had evidence of corruption in his office, evidence that Daniel Chen was working with a rival crime family. She said she'd verified what she could, that it looked legitimate, and that he needed to see it before the planned raid happened. Her father's face went through like 10 different emotions in 5 seconds. Anger, disbelief, concern, fear. He wanted to know who'd contacted her, demanded to know how she'd gotten involved in something so dangerous. But Bella stood her ground, said she'd tell him everything eventually, but right now he needed to focus on the evidence, needed to see what was really happening under his nose. Judge Martinez plugged in the drive and started going through the files. Bella watched his face as he saw the photos, read the transcripts, listened to the recordings of Chen meeting with Vitali family members. She watched her father, this man who'd always been so certain about everything, so confident in his judgments, slowly realize he'd been played. That his right-hand man, the person he trusted most, had been betraying him for months. The room was silent except for the clicking of the mouse as he went deeper into the evidence. And then he got to a file that Marcus had included, a file Bella hadn't seen before. Her father's face went completely white, like he'd seen a ghost. His hands started shaking as he read whatever was on the screen. Bella asked him what it was, what he'd found. Judge Martinez closed the laptop slowly, sat back in his chair, and for the first time in Bella's entire life, she saw her father cry. Real tears, not the kind you cry at weddings or funerals, but the kind that come from deep shame, from guilt you've been carrying for decades. He told her that the evidence didn't just expose Chen, it also contained information about the case from 20 years ago, the corrupt cops, the missing witness. Someone had dug up everything, connected all the dots, and now it was all there in black and white. Bella's heart was racing because she knew what was coming, knew her father was about to confess something he'd never told anyone. And he did. Judge Martinez told his daughter about the woman he'd fallen in love with during that investigation, how young and stupid he'd been, how he'd convinced himself it was okay because he was going to protect her, going to make sure she got justice. He told Bella about finding out she was pregnant, about his panic and fear because he was engaged to Bella's mother at the time, because his career was just starting, because everything would have been ruined. He told her about the last conversation he'd had with that woman, how he'd asked her to wait until after the trial to tell anyone about the baby, how he'd promised they'd figure it out together. And then she'd vanished the next day and he never saw her again. He told Bella that he'd spent 20 years telling himself it wasn't his fault, that he couldn't have known what would happen, that he'd done more good since then than harm. But deep down he knew the truth. He'd put his career above someone's life, had made a choice that got an innocent woman and an unborn child killed. And he'd been running from that guilt ever since, hiding behind his reputation as the incorruptible judge, trying to make up for it by being harder on criminals, by never showing mercy. Bella was crying too now, not because she was disappointed in her father, but because she finally understood him. Understood why he was so obsessed with the Romano case, why he could never let it go. It wasn't really about Marcus at all. It was about punishing himself, about trying to erase that one terrible choice by being perfect at everything else. Judge Martinez asked Bella how she'd gotten this evidence, who would have compiled all of this information. And that's when she told him the truth, told him about Marcus, about their childhood connection, about the youth center funding, about everything Marcus had been doing to try and break the cycle instead of continuing it. She told her father that the man he'd been trying to destroy for 3 years was the same boy who used to play with her in the park, the son of his old friend, someone who'd kept his secret not to protect himself, but to protect her, to protect the memory of who Richard Martinez used to be before everything went wrong. Her father sat there processing all of this, and Bella could see him going through the same thing she'd gone through days earlier. That moment when everything you thought you knew gets flipped upside down, when the bad guy turns out to be more honorable than the good guy, when you realize the world isn't black and white at all, it's just a million shades of gray and everyone's just trying to survive their own mistakes. Judge Martinez made a decision that night. He told Bella he was going to expose Chin, cancel the raid, and start an investigation into the Vitali family's operations in California. But more than that, he was going to come clean about what happened 20 years ago, was going to finally face the consequences of his choices, even if it meant losing everything he'd built. Bella tried to talk him out of it, said he could still do good without destroying himself, but her father shook his head. He said that Marcus was right, the only way to break the cycle was to bring everything into the light, all the secrets, all the lies, all the compromises that had led them to this moment. He said he'd been a coward for 20 years, and it was time to finally be brave. The next week was absolute chaos. Daniel Chin was arrested trying to flee the country. The evidence against him was overwhelming, and he flipped on the Vitali family immediately, gave up names, locations, everything. Federal agents raided Vitali operations across California, and the whole conspiracy came crashing down. But that wasn't the biggest news. Judge Richard Martinez held a press conference where he admitted to his relationship with the witness 20 years ago, admitted to his failure to protect her, and resigned from the bench. The legal community was shook, the media went crazy, and Bella's life got turned completely upside down. Through all of it, Marcus stayed in the background, never taking credit, never making it about him. But he made sure Bella and her father were protected from any blowback, made sure no one connected Bella to the evidence that had exposed Chin. And slowly, quietly, he started the process of getting out of the family business, using the chaos with the Vitalis as cover to restructure everything, to legitimize the operations that could be legitimized and shut down the ones that couldn't. 3 months after everything went down, Bella was at the youth center in Compton, working with a new group of kids, when Marcus showed up. He looked different, lighter somehow, like he'd finally put down weight he'd been carrying forever. They walked outside and talked for hours about everything that had happened, about where they were going from here, about whether two people with their history could ever have something normal. Marcus told her he didn't know what the future looked like, didn't know if he could ever fully escape his past or if people would ever see him as anything other than a criminal. But he knew one thing for sure: he wanted to try, wanted to be better, wanted to honor that promise they'd made as kids to always be friends, even if it took them 20 years and a war to remember it. Bella looked at him and realized something important. The forbidden secret that had brought them together wasn't just about corruption or crime or family loyalties. It was about second chances, about how sometimes the people we're told to fear are the ones who understand us best, about how the path to redemption isn't always straight or easy or pretty, but it's worth taking anyway. She didn't know if they'd end up together romantically or if they'd just rebuild that childhood friendship or if life would pull them in completely different directions. But she knew that whatever happened next, they'd face it honestly, without secrets, without fear, and with the knowledge that sometimes the most dangerous thing you can do is tell the truth, and sometimes that's exactly what sets you free. Now here's the thing, this story? It doesn't actually end here. Because what happened after Judge Martinez's resignation, what happened with Marcus's transition out of the criminal world, what happened between him and Bella as they tried to figure out what they meant to each other, that's a whole other chapter. And trust me, it gets even more intense, even more complicated, because leaving the mob life isn't as simple as just walking away, and rebuilding trust after decades of secrets isn't something that happens overnight. I've got more stories about Bella and Marcus, about the challenges they faced, about the enemies who didn't want Marcus to go legitimate, about Bella's journey to forgive her father and find her own path forward. Stories about sacrifice, about love that doesn't fit into neat categories, about people who refuse to be defined by their worst mistakes. If you want to know what happens next, if you're invested in seeing how their story continues, then you need to check out the next video on this channel. I promise you it's worth it. These are the kind of stories that stay with you, that make you think differently about good and evil, about justice and mercy, about the choices we make when there are no easy answers. So don't leave yet, click on the next video, keep following this journey with me because we're just getting started. And hey, if this story moved you, if it made you feel something or think about things differently, share it with someone who needs to hear it. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss what comes next, because there's so much more to tell, so many more layers to uncover. The story of Bella and Marcus, the judge's daughter and the Mafia boss, the childhood friends who found each other again in the middle of chaos. It's not over. It's just beginning. So what are you waiting for? Click that next video right now and let's continue this journey together. You won't regret it, I promise you that.